Jackson and I had been best friends since our first day at Stanford. We built our tech startup from scratch, working side by side for years, turning our dorm room dream into a multi-million-dollar reality. When I woke up in the hospital after emergency surgery, my first thought was wondering why he was not there. Then my phone rang. The voice on the other end told me something that made my blood run cold. While I was unconscious, Jackson had taken everything we built together. Before I tell you how my best friend of 15 years stabbed me in the back while I was fighting for my life, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit subscribe if you have ever trusted someone who did not deserve it. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, the kind where people work hard and dream modestly. My parents taught me the value of education, which is how I ended up at Stanford studying computer science. That first day of freshman orientation was overwhelming. Hundreds of eager faces in an auditorium, all of us pretending we were not terrified. That is when I met Jackson. He stood out immediately, confident, tall, with a smile that put everyone at ease. While I was fumbling with my campus map, he walked right up and introduced himself. "You look like you could use a guide," he said, extending his hand. "Jackson Davis. Computer science. But I am really here to build the next big thing." His certainty was magnetic. We discovered we were in the same dorm, just 3 doors apart. What started as convenience quickly became friendship. Where I was analytical and sometimes socially awkward, Jackson was charismatic and bold. We balanced each other perfectly. I could solve complex coding problems that left him frustrated, and he could charm investors or professors with an ease I envied. Through 4 years of college, we became inseparable. I remember the countless all-nighters we pulled together, fueled by energy drinks and determination. There was the disastrous mobile app we built sophomore year that crashed during the demo. Jackson smoothly turned it into a joke that had even our stern professor laughing. And when my girlfriend of 2 years broke up with me before finals, Jackson was the one who made sure I still passed every exam. One particular memory stands out. In our junior year, I had a professor who seemed to have it out for me, constantly questioning my work in front of the class. After one especially humiliating session, Jackson stayed behind and defended me. I never knew exactly what he said, but that professor treated me with respect for the remainder of the semester. I had his back too. When his parents announced their divorce during our senior year, Jackson fell apart privately. For weeks, I covered for him in group projects, made excuses to professors, and listened as he processed his family falling apart. "You are more like a brother than a friend," he told me one night after too many beers. I believed him. We graduated with big dreams, but took different paths initially. I joined a tech firm in San Francisco, while Jackson headed to New York for a consulting job. We stayed connected, calling weekly to share stories and ideas. The dream of starting something together remained alive in those conversations, a technological revolution waiting to be born. 3 years later, we ran into each other at a tech conference in Austin. It felt like no time had passed. Over barbecue and local beer, we sketched out our vision on napkins, a financial technology platform that would democratize investing for everyday Americans. By midnight, we had decided it was time to build our dream. The early days were exhilarating and terrifying. We pooled our savings borrowed from family and convinced a few college friends to invest small amounts. My parents contributed $20,000 from their retirement fund, despite my protests. "We believe in you," my father said simply. The weight of their trust kept me coding until 3 a.m. most nights. Our first office was a corner of a converted warehouse in Oakland, drafty in winter and sweltering in summer, but it was ours. When our prototype attracted attention from an angel investor who committed $250,000, we celebrated by ordering expensive champagne but drinking it from paper cups because we had not bought proper glasses yet. That investment allowed us both to quit our day jobs. Watching Jackson negotiate with potential clients was like witnessing art. He knew exactly which pain points to highlight, which promises to make, and which to withhold. With each successful meeting, our company grew stronger. I will never forget the night we secured our first major client, a regional bank in Oregon. Jackson burst into the office where I had been debugging code for 14 hours straight. "We did it," he shouted, pulling me into a bear hug. "This is just the beginning, Timothy. You and me, we are going to change the world." In that moment, I believed with absolute certainty that we would. Looking back, there were warning signs. The way Jackson would casually mention my company in interviews, how he began scheduling investor meetings when I was deep in development sprints, the subtle shift from we to I when discussing future vision. But when you trust someone completely, you explain away these moments. I told myself he was simply playing the role of CEO, doing what was necessary for our success. I was wrong. The next 2 years were a blur of growth and challenges. Our team expanded from just the two of us to 15 talented individuals, each bringing unique skills to our vision. We moved from our dingy warehouse corner to a proper office in downtown San Francisco with glass walls and a view of the bay. Each new hire, each upgraded square foot felt like tangible proof that we were making it. My contribution was creating an algorithm that could predict market fluctuations with remarkable accuracy. I spent months refining it, testing against historical data, tweaking variables, until it performed better than anything else on the market. When we demonstrated it to potential clients, their eyes would widen at the implications. This technology could transform how everyday people invested their money. Our breakthrough attracted attention. TechCrunch featured us in an article about disruptive fintech startups. Suddenly, investors were calling us rather than the other way around. Jackson handled these inquiries with practiced ease, scheduling meetings and charming potential backers, while I continued refining our technology. The Series A funding round changed everything. $1.5 million, more money than I had ever imagined handling, flowed into our company accounts. We celebrated at an upscale restaurant where the waiters wore ties and the wine list was thicker than a textbook. Jackson ordered champagne for the entire team and toasted to the future of finance. Everyone looked at us with admiration and expectation. With success came pressure. I started experiencing headaches that pounded behind my eyes for days. Sleep became a luxury as we raced to scale our platform for more users. My diet consisted mainly of delivery food eaten cold at my desk. Jackson noticed my exhaustion, but encouraged me to push through it. "This is what building a legacy requires, Timothy," he said one night, as I rubbed my temples fighting through pain to fix a critical bug. No one changed the world working 9 to 5. His words resonated with me. We were doing something important, something bigger than ourselves. What was a little discomfort compared to that gradually subtle changes crept into our partnership. During a crucial presentation to investors, Jackson presented my algorithm as if it had been a collaborative effort, referring vaguely to our development team. When I mentioned it afterward, he brushed it off. "These investors respond better to team efforts. It is just optics, nothing personal." Decision-making started happening without me. I would arrive at the office to discover new hires I had never interviewed or strategic pivots I had not been consulted on. When I raised concerns, Jackson would smile and place a hand on my shoulder. "You have been so busy with development, I did not want to distract you with administrative details." Each explanation seemed reasonable in isolation, but together they formed a pattern I was too trusting to recognize. The breaking point should have been the Vertex Capital meeting. This venture firm could provide the funding we needed for global expansion, and Jackson insisted on handling the presentation alone. "You need to focus on fixing those server issues," he told me. "I have got this." I later discovered from our marketing director that Jackson had represented himself as the sole founder in that meeting with no mention of my role. One evening, while searching for a misplaced hard drive in the office, I found medication paperwork in the trash near Jackson's desk, papers he had hidden from me. They detailed treatments for stress-induced health conditions similar to what I had been experiencing. Jackson had been consulting doctors about the very symptoms I was having, but rather than sharing their warnings, he had concealed them. I confronted him the next morning, anger and hurt fueling my courage. "You have been keeping things from me, important things about the company and about my health." For a moment, his confident facade cracked, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. Then his expression softened, and the Jackson I thought I knew returned. "Timothy, I am so sorry. Things have been moving incredibly fast, and I was just trying to manage everything. You are right. We need better communication." His apology seemed sincere. We spent hours talking, recalibrating our partnership, making promises of transparency. I wanted to believe we had fixed things. 3 weeks later, I collapsed. After 72 hours of nonstop coding to meet a launch deadline, my body simply gave out. One moment I was typing, the next searing pain ripped through my abdomen. Our office manager found me curled on the floor, sweating and unable to stand. Jackson arrived as the paramedics were loading me into an ambulance. Perforated ulcer, the emergency doctor later explained, likely caused by extreme stress and poor self-care. You will need immediate surgery. As they prepared me for the operating room, Jackson stood by my bed, his face a mask of concern. "Do not worry about anything," he assured me, squeezing my hand. "I will handle everything while you recover." Through a haze of pre-surgical medication, I looked up at my best friend. "I trust you with our dream," I said. Those were the last words I spoke before the anesthesia took effect. 3 days passed in a medicated blur. When I finally regained full consciousness, the hospital room was empty, except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors. No flowers, no cards, no Jackson. A strange hollowness settled in my chest that had nothing to do with my surgery. A nurse came in to check my vitals. "Has anyone been to visit me?" I asked, my voice raspy from the breathing tube they had removed. "No visitors," she replied, adjusting my IV. "Just that lawyer who left some papers." She nodded toward a manila envelope on the bedside table, said your partner sent him. Lawyer papers, confusion, and unease swirled through my mind as I reached for my phone. The screen showed dozens of notifications, missed calls, text messages, emails. Most were from our employees with subject lines like, "What is happening?" and "Call me as soon as possible." With trembling fingers, I called Marcus, our lead developer, and someone I trusted implicitly. He answered on the first ring. "Timothy, thank God. Are you okay? Do you know what Jackson has done?" The story Marcus told me made my surgical pain seem trivial by comparison. While I had been unconscious, Jackson had executed a plan that had apparently been months in the making. Our partnership agreement contained an emergency clause that could be triggered if one partner became medically incapacitated. Jackson had used my surgery as justification to invoke this provision. He called an emergency board meeting. Marcus explained, his voice tight with anger. "Claimed your health issues were chronic and would permanently compromise your ability to fulfill your duties." He had medical opinions, paid for obviously, backing him up. The board, consisting mainly of investors Jackson had cultivated relationships with, voted to restructure the company leadership. By the time I woke up, Jackson had legally removed me from my position and drastically reduced my equity stake from 50% to a mere 5%. My hands shook as I opened the manila envelope. Inside was a cold, formal letter explaining the board's decision and my new advisory role, essentially a meaningless title with no actual authority. The signature line showed Jackson's name with his new title, Chief Executive Officer and Majority Shareholder. I tried calling every investor and board member I knew. Most did not answer. Those who did expressed regret, but insisted the decision was best for the company's future. One admitted off the record that Jackson had been meeting with them privately for months, gradually planting doubts about my stability and commitment. When I finally reached Jackson himself, his transformation was complete. Gone was any pretense of the friend I had known for 15 years. His voice was cool, professional, detached. "Timothy, I understand you are upset, but this is simply business. Your health issues were creating uncertainty, and uncertainty is fatal for startups." The board agreed unanimously. "We built this together," I said, my voice breaking. "I trusted you." "That was your choice," he replied. "Business is business. I will have HR send your personal belongings. Feel better soon." He hung up before I could respond. I attempted to log into our company systems only to discover all my access had been revoked. My email returned an automated message. "This account has been deactivated." Our company social media pages already featured announcements about exciting new leadership and direction, as if my contribution had been erased overnight. Something inside me snapped. I hurled my phone against the wall with such force that it shattered pieces, scattering across the sterile hospital floor. A doctor rushed in, alarmed by the noise and the sudden spike in my heart rate monitor. "You need to calm down," he warned after examining me. "Your body is still healing. This level of stress could cause serious complications." I wanted to scream that complications were the least of my worries, that everything I had built was being stolen while I lay helpless. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, tears of rage and betrayal sliding into my pillow. Later that evening, an older nurse came to check on me. She found me still staring blankly ahead, trapped in my own thoughts. "Whatever you are going through," she said quietly, as she adjusted my medication, "it is not the end. I was 43 when my husband of 20 years left me for my sister. Thought my life was over. Now I am 60, remarried to a wonderful man with grandkids and a life I never imagined." Her words penetrated the fog of my despair. Not with hope. I was nowhere near hope, but with the first tiny spark of defiance. Maybe this was not the end of my story. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Emily, a junior developer we had hired 8 months earlier, slipped into my room looking nervous. "I should not be here," she whispered, glancing toward the door. "Jackson told everyone you had a nervous breakdown and not to contact you." She pulled a USB drive from her pocket. "But I saw what he did. He does not know. I backed up your emails before he deleted your account." The drive contained hundreds of emails spanning the past 6 months. Reading through them was like watching a methodical betrayal unfold in slow motion. Jackson had been consulting lawyers about the emergency clause since my first complaint about headaches. He had conducted one-on-one meetings with each board member, gradually undermining my reputation. Most damning of all were exchanges with a developer from a competing firm discussing how to modify my algorithm once I was out of the picture. As I scrolled through this electronic record of treachery, something shifted within me. The crushing weight of betrayal was still there, but now it was joined by something stronger: resolve. Jackson had calculated everything perfectly, except for the possibility that I would not simply give up. Looking up at Emily, who had risked her job to bring me this evidence, I made a decision. "Thank you," I said, sitting up straighter despite the pain from my healing incision. "Now let us talk about what happens next." 1 week after my surgery, I checked myself out of the hospital against medical advice. My body was weak, but my determination had never been stronger. I moved into a small, furnished apartment in a less desirable part of town, a far cry from the luxury condo I had been renting during our company's successful days. With my personal savings rapidly dwindling, I needed to be strategic. My first step was gathering allies. I reached out to former team members who had either quit or been pushed out since Jackson's takeover. Marcus had already resigned in protest, and Emily was feeding me information while maintaining her position inside. 3 other developers joined our cause after learning how Jackson had manipulated the board. "He is gutting your algorithm," Emily reported during one of our clandestine meetings at a coffee shop far from the office. "Rushing implementation without proper testing because he promised investors immediate results. The system is becoming unstable, but he will not listen to the technical team." I consulted with a lawyer specializing in startup disputes, not the high-priced firm our company had on retainer, but a scrappy, independent attorney named Diana, who had built her reputation representing founders in similar situations. "Your partnership agreement has vulnerabilities," she explained, reviewing the documents, "but his execution was sloppy. The medical opinions were rushed, and he made promises to investors that created a paper trail. We have options. Rather than launching an all-out legal assault which would have drained my limited resources, we developed a more strategic approach. I began reaching out to our smaller investors, those who had been excluded from Jackson's emergency board meeting. Many were shocked to learn the full story and concerned about the ethical implications for their investment. "This is not what I invested in," said Robert Klein, an angel investor who had supported us from the beginning. "I invested in 2 brilliant friends with complementary skills and a vision for ethical finance, not whatever this has become." Unknown to Jackson, I had maintained a complete backup of our codebase, including all versions of my algorithm. I spent weeks documenting every aspect of its development, establishing a clear timeline of intellectual property creation that predated our formal partnership agreement. This would prove crucial in establishing my rightful claim to the technology. Meanwhile, Jackson was making critical mistakes. In his rush to demonstrate growth to the board, he had cut corners on security measures I had insisted were essential. Emily provided screenshots of internal testing showing alarming vulnerability points that could compromise user data, a potential legal and public relations disaster. The next phase of our plan required careful timing. Through Robert, we arranged for an anonymous tip to reach Alicia Torres, a respected tech journalist known for her investigative reporting on startup ethics. She began asking uncomfortable questions about the company's recent leadership changes and technical decisions. Jackson's response was predictably defensive, which only increased Alicia's interest. Her preliminary article raised questions about the circumstances of my departure and the subsequent technical changes to the platform. While carefully worded to avoid legal issues, it cast doubt on Jackson's narrative and put him under unwelcome scrutiny. The pressure began to show results. Finance Week. One of our largest clients expressed concerns about platform stability under the new leadership. 2 board members contacted Diana, privately worried about potential liability if the security issues became public. The momentum was shifting. For 3 months, I worked tirelessly despite ongoing health challenges. My doctor warned that my recovery was being compromised by stress, but I could not slow down. I will rest when this is done. I promised during checkups, though we both knew it was a lie. Finally, we were ready for the confrontation. Using the leverage of concerned investors, we secured me an opportunity to address the board at their quarterly meeting. Jackson tried to block my attendance, but 2 board members insisted on hearing my side directly. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. Every scenario, every possible objection, every counter-argument cycled through my mind. By morning, I was exhausted but focused, dressed in the only suit I had kept after downsizing my life. Walking into our former office was surreal. Some employees stared in shock. Others averted their eyes. Jackson sat at the head of the conference table, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief when I entered with Diana and Robert. "This is an authorized board meeting," I began, calmly placing a thick binder of evidence before each member. "And I am still a shareholder, even if my stake was illegally diminished. Today, I am presenting evidence of fraudulent actions that have put this company, its investors, and its clients at risk." For the next hour, I methodically outlined Jackson's betrayal, the falsified medical reports, the secret meetings, the technical compromises, the intellectual property theft. Diana supplemented my presentation with legal citations, while Robert spoke to the ethical breaches from an investor perspective. Throughout it all, Jackson attempted to interrupt, to discredit, to dismiss, but the evidence was overwhelming. The turning point came when we presented the email exchanges with our competitor. "This is not just unethical," Diana explained. "This constitutes corporate espionage and intellectual property theft, which carries both civil and criminal liabilities." I watched the board members exchange glances, their expressions shifting from skepticism to concern to alarm. Jackson grew increasingly desperate, accusing me of fabricating evidence, of being mentally unstable, of trying to destroy the company out of spite. His accusations grew so outlandish that they only strengthened my case. When he finally ran out of arguments, the company lawyer, who had remained silent throughout, cleared his throat. "Based on the evidence presented, I must advise the board that the company faces significant legal exposure if these allegations prove true. Furthermore, Mr. Davis's actions appear to violate several provisions of both the partnership agreement and his fiduciary duty." The vote that followed was unanimous. Jackson was removed as CEO pending a full investigation. I was reinstated to the executive team, though not immediately. As CEO, a compromise I had suggested myself to reassure investors about stability. A formal apology would be issued, and my equity stake would be restored. As the meeting adjourned, Jackson stormed toward the exit, stopping briefly beside my chair. "This is not over," he hissed, but the hollow threat only emphasized how thoroughly the tables had turned. The following morning, I walked back into our office, our true office, to applause from the team members who had remained. Their welcome was the first moment I allowed myself to feel the victory, not just over Jackson, but over the darkness that had nearly consumed me. The months that followed were challenging in different ways. Rebuilding the company required more than just technical fixes. It needed cultural healing. I established new policies emphasizing work-life balance and transparent leadership. No more 72-hour coding sprints. No more hidden agendas. We implemented mandatory vacation time and mental health support for all employees. My own healing journey paralleled the company's. Weekly therapy sessions helped me process the betrayal and recognize the warning signs I had ignored. Trust is not the problem, my therapist explained. Blind trust is. There is a difference between faith in people and surrendering your power. I restructured our board to include more diverse perspectives and ethical oversight. Emily, whose loyalty had been instrumental in our recovery, was promoted to Chief Technology Officer. Her first project was strengthening the security measures Jackson had compromised. Surprisingly, our company emerged stronger from the crisis. The media coverage, while initially concerning, ultimately portrayed us as an ethical success story in an industry often criticized for cutthroat practices. New clients cited our commitment to integrity as a key factor in their decision to partner with us. Almost exactly 1 year after my hospital stay, I encountered Jackson at an industry conference in New York. He had found a position with a smaller firm, his reputation damaged but not destroyed. In the crowded exhibition hall, he approached me with an unexpected humility. I made terrible mistakes, he said, his eyes lacking the confidence that once defined him. What I did to you, to our friendship, was unforgivable. I studied the face I had once trusted implicitly. You are right. It was unforgivable, I replied evenly. I do not hate you anymore, Jackson. That would give you too much power over my life. But I will never trust you again, and I will never forget. Walking away from that conversation, I felt the last piece of my old self, the naively trusting friend who believed in unconditional loyalty, fade away. In its place stood someone stronger, wiser, and more discerning. Someone who understood that true strength comes not from avoiding betrayal, but from surviving it. The experience changed how I build relationships, both personal and professional. I no longer offer trust automatically. It must be earned through consistent actions over time. My friendship circle is smaller but deeper, built on mutual respect rather than convenience or shared history. Our company continues to thrive recently, closing a Series B funding round that valued us at $30 million. The algorithm that Jackson tried to steal has been enhanced and protected with multiple patents. But perhaps more importantly, we have become known for our ethical approach to financial technology, creating tools that genuinely help everyday Americans build security, rather than exploiting them for quick profits. I still carry physical reminders of that dark time. The surgical scar on my abdomen, the occasional stomach pain when stress builds up. But these are now reminders of resilience rather than weakness. If you are facing betrayal in your own life right now, remember that surviving it will reveal strengths you never knew you possessed. The person who emerges from that fire will be wiser, more compassionate, and more powerful than before. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately made you stronger? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps me continue sharing these life lessons. Remember, sometimes the people who hurt us the most become our greatest teachers, not because they intended to help us grow, but because we refused to let their actions define our future.